All right, now, suspended ANC SG ace Magashule's legal team is adamant that his suspension was unlawful. The case between Magashule and the ruling party was before the High Court in Johannesburg earlier today. Magashule wants the court to declare the suspension invalid, unlawful and unconstitutional. He was suspended after refusing to step down. He is, of course, facing corruption and fraud charges related to the controversial Free State asbestos project, which happened while he was Premier. Our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge, was in court. Let's cross to him for the latest. Sipha, thank you so much for joining us. You were in court, but also outside court. And I want to start with what happened outside court, because for me, that was extremely worrying. I was watching our channel earlier today, and I saw that you were near the crowds gathered. Talk to us about whether you think this was a super spreader event, how many people were gathered, and did the police do anything to disperse the crowd?
You will not be the only one to be worried and concerned about what transpired outside the High Court here division in Gauteng, sitting in Johannesburg. Of course, that's when supporters of Ace Magashule, the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, came to support him. Yes, many people, including health authorities, law enforcement agencies, as well as ordinary members of the public, were worried about this gathering being a super spreader event. Not many people were socially distancing. Not all of them were wearing masks. Not all of them were sanitizing. So you had that concern. I even spotted police officers having a meeting on the side to discuss how to deal with this crowd. Many people have even classified this as a political gathering, yet we know that gatherings are limited in terms of numbers. I wouldn't be able to tell you how many people were here, but obviously there were more than 100, so that is a concern. I couldn't say for certain how many were there, but it was a decent crowd. Ace Magashule yesterday speaking to us did discourage his supporters from coming to court to support him, saying in the midst of the third wave, we know that Gauteng is the epicenter when it comes to the COVID-19 third wave. He said people shouldn't come out in numbers to support him. His supporters drove all the way from Mpumalanga province. I interviewed some of his supporters from Mpumalanga, from Limpopo, from the Free State. So even from KwaZulu-Natal, there were people who came here to support Ace Magashule. Some of them, including Nkosentsha Shezi, by the way, even addressed the gathering here. Nkosentsha Shezi is also part of the Radical Economic Transformation Champions. They call themselves RET Champions. He had applied to join the proceedings as an interested party to intervene in the proceedings. There were 3 of them, but of course the application was dismissed. So many people were really concerned about what transpired outside court. Ace Magashule did not address his supporters because he was concerned about this being a super spreader event in terms of COVID-19. But police tried to manage the crowd, but no visible intervention was seen in terms of them ensuring that there is compliance with COVID-19 regulations and protocols.
All right, so for me that is the most critical thing, that there were supporters there, as you say. They weren't wearing masks, and there was, in fact, I think it was either a bus or it was a sort of a grandstand that said, you know, we support ACE. So it was clearly organised and clearly very problematic, given the shockingly high numbers of COVID infections we have here in Gauteng. So let's move on now to what happened in court. I understand proceedings started with, I think it was 3 applications to be involved in the case, which were dismissed. Just briefly explain that and why it might be critical.
It is critical because some people had applied to join Ace Magashule here to support his application to have his suspension declared invalid, unlawful and unconstitutional. They are the members of the ANC. In total, there were 3 applications that were brought in by interested parties who wanted to be the friends of the court in support of Ace Magashule. But from the morning, the 3 judges, which is a full bench, by the way, they had to deal with those preliminary issues before they could get to the actual arguments by Ace Magashule's legal team led by Advocate Dalimpofu, who is the senior counsel. So those applications were dismissed on the basis of the fact that judges felt that they were not urgent, so there was no need for them to be heard and to be admitted on an urgent basis. Perhaps let's listen to Judge Kolapen explaining the decision to dismiss that with costs.
I'm also not satisfied that a proper case has been made out as to why this court needs to, on the basis of urgency, have to adjudicate the relief that they seek. That relief may well be dealt with in the fullness of time by another court. And in that regard, we're not satisfied that a proper case has been advanced in respect of the urgency of this application.
Okay, now tell us about Magashule's side and what was their argument for saying the move to suspend him was against the law.
At the center of his argument, the gist of it all is the issue of the ANC constitution versus the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Ace Magashule is arguing in his court papers and through his legal team's arguments here that the ANC constitution is not above the constitution of the country. He was asked to step aside on the basis of the fact that he has been charged. He is facing those charges at the Bloemfontein High Court in the Free State, but he says he is innocent until proven otherwise. So therefore he cannot be compelled to step aside because he has not been found guilty by any court of law. He also argues that there seems to be a selection application in terms of selective application in terms of the conference resolutions of the African National Congress in Nazareth, that is the 54th National Conference of the ANC. He argues that he's being singled out when it comes to the issue of the step aside resolution. At the center of it all, he says this is politically motivated. There are some people within the ANC who do not want him to continue to occupy the powerful position at the office of the Secretary General of the governing ANC. So there are three respondents in this matter. Respondent number one is the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. Respondent number two is Jesse Duarte, who is Magashule's deputy. Magashule argues that Jesse Duarte doesn't have the authority to sign that suspension letter because it's only Magashule who is empowered by the constitution of the ANC and other provincial secretaries, regional secretaries and branch secretaries who can basically decide when and how to suspend a member. They've got the powers to do so. Hence, he argues that his decision to suspend the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, should be declared valid because he's got power and authority to suspend any member of the ANC. But he wants the court to set aside his suspension, arguing that it's unconstitutional, unlawful, invalid, and therefore he is seeking that relief from the court. But let's listen to his legal representative, Advocate Dalimpofu, arguing.
It's not possible. It's not humanly possible to find that this suspension was lawful. Firstly, because of the instruments that were used to do it, which we have discussed, because of the manner in which it was done, because of the flip-flopping on the part of the ANC. Today you are in, today you are out, now you must sign this, authorize this, no, you are suspended, retrospective. I mean, it's a mess. And then to crown it all, you then come and say that let's now re-engineer not only the step-aside rule, let's also re-engineer 2570 and change it into a rule that where the NWC must have satisfaction, whatever that means. I don't even know how that works.
Advocate Dalimpofu, who of course is representing Ace Magashule. Very quickly, Sipha, we're continuing tomorrow. It's been set down for 2 days, am I right?
That is correct. We resume at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and we expect that the arguments will continue and that the respondent will have their time and their chance to argue. But yes, indeed, outside court, Ace Magashule's supporters were here. They are adamant that they will continue to support him. Let me add that one of the arguments there by Ace Magashule is that the National Working Committee of the governing ANC, which is responsible for the day-to-day running of the organization, doesn't have powers to suspend him or to recommend that he be suspended. He argues that it should have been a special National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC to recommend that, and that's where the decision should have been taken, not the National Working Committee basically mandating Jesse Duarte to sign that suspension letter. If we have time, listen to Carl Niehaus from MKMVA, one of the staunch allies and supporters of Ace Magashule.
All right, unfortunately, we don't have time, Sipha, but I know that we're going to be chatting to you again later. So I'm sure we're going to hear from Carl Niehaus at that point. Thank you so much. That's our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge in downtown Johannesburg.